Being a parent that has a child on autism spectrum disorder is already very challenging, and facing difficulties to communicate with this child is the most difficult aspect. Are you a parent that is having a child that is on the autism spectrum disorder and you have been facing difficulties in communicating with this child? I am here to bring you some more realistic cues on how you can be able to communicate with your child that is on the spectrum. Now, first of all, the major reason why it is so difficult to communicate with the children on the spectrum is that not two children on the spectrum are the same, and whatever had worked for A can definitely not work for B. We just try to see if that is going to work, but if it does not work, we go for more measures to be able to help our children communicate. The first reason how you can be able to help your child communicate is, first of all, we are going to be looking at the general communication strategies. Now, sometimes it's so difficult to communicate with children on the spectrum without living in an environment that, first of all, understand the needs of this child. Now, there are many people who just talk and go without paying attention to other people's feelings. But when it comes to children with autism, you have to pay attention to their feelings, their expressions, their gestures, if they are with you or not. You have to first of all use direct communication strategies. You have to be very direct and precise using short sentences. You don't use difficult and complex terms to express yourself with them. You have to understand that children with autism don't understand sarcasm. And in our general world today, we use a lot of sarcasm. People with autism don't understand sarcasm. You might be using sarcastic words, thinking that they did understand you, and unfortunately, you just hurt their feelings, and that is going to only help to shut them down. Another way that you can be able to communicate with your child is using visuals or non-visual cues. You can use, for example, PECS or ACC, AAC. PECS are picture exchange communication devices. They help children a lot to communicate, especially children on the spectrum. You use pictures. For example, like using general cues to communicate. For example, if you want to say, John, why did you not keep your shoes on the shoe stand? You can simply say, John, put your shoes on the shoe stand. And rather than saying, shoes, John, put your shoes on the shoe stand, because you don't know if John actually understands what shoes are, you could simply produce an image that has a shoe stand, or a picture that has a shoe or a shoe stand, and you show it to John and say, John, shoes. John, stand. And then you take those shoes and you put on the stand, and you show a picture that has a combination of shoes on the stand. That is so easy to communicate, right? Now, another way that you can be able to help your child that is on that spectrum is that you can also use creating a simple environment that can be able to adapt to their needs. Now, sometimes we do crowd their environment with a lot of information. We can be talking about shoes, where shoes are, their dresses, their books, their bags, tables. Everything is just mixed. Everything is just crowded. And they are unable to figure out which one is the shoe from the bags, from the books, from the dresses. It's difficult for them to picture that out. So you can create a more supportive environment for children on the spectrum. And when you want to communicate with them, make sure that it is you and the child that is on the spectrum. Do not call John, for example, John. Our case study is John, sorry. Now, do not say John. And where there is John, there is Mary, there's Elizabeth, there is Joan, and there is Joshua. And John might not even know that his name is John, because he might not respond to that. You might simply just walk to him, look him on the face, and say, John, why don't you place your shoes on the shoe stand? Or John, place your shoes on the shoe stand. And that now John can understand that you were talking to him. That speech was directed to him. Because most children on the spectrum face difficulties in understanding when they are being communicated to and communicated at. And then again, sometimes it is difficult for children on the spectrum to understand if a communication is directed towards them, because you are not able to use the right names for the children. For example, this is John and his name is John. Instead of calling him John, you're calling him Johnny Johnny. Instead of calling him John, you're calling him Boo Boo, you're calling him Baby, you're calling him Shine, you're calling him names he wouldn't understand. And now today you call him John, tomorrow you call him Boy, tomorrow you call him Boo Boo, tomorrow you call him some names that he doesn't understand. And that can make it very difficult for him to be able to bond with you in communication. So make sure that you use the right name for the child when you're communicating with that child, and make sure that you're consistent with it. Try to promote a lot of eye contact with the child. Try to move closely to the child whenever you are communicating to them. Do not send your words or your communication to them from a distance, because they might not know if that communication was directed to them or to another person. And then the third way to communicate with your, or is the fourth way to communicate with your child, is creating more reinforcing environment, encouraging and reinforcing communication in children with autism. How do you do that? Now, if your child, for example, that is on the spectrum, has been using one word for the past 1 year, for example, dada or mama, make sure that you use that word on daily basis to encourage him or her to be able to talk. Because if you don't use that, the one word that that child was able to make within that year might simply disappear. Keep on encouraging them. Use more toys. If they are on their toys, you make sure that you call the toys by their names. Create more playful activities so that you can be able to bond with your child that is on the spectrum. In summary, we just spoke about the general cues of communicating with children on the spectrum. We spoke about using visual or non-visual communication devices. We spoke about creating a more supportive environment, and then we are just speaking about encouraging and reinforcing communication in children. For more details about how all this can be done, make sure that you follow us on this page and ask your questions directly to us on WhatsApp or on this page, or give us a call so that we can be able to help you navigate through your life's journey on autism with you and your child and the society, so that you can be able to help your child. Now, above everything, make sure that you're very patient with your child, because if you're having a meltdown with this child and your child is having a meltdown, nobody is going to help another person. Make sure that you work on yourself and be able to control your frustration, because you might throw some tantrums that this child might not understand, and it can only help to chase the child away from you rather than getting them closer to you as a parent. Also, as a parent, make sure that the people around your child understand your child's spectrum. They understand how to assist the child and to navigate the child through the daily life living. Because sometimes it's so difficult when your neighbor does not know that your child is on the spectrum, or when the sibling of that child does not know that the child is on the spectrum. So together, let's help to support and create a more supportive environment for all our children on the spectrum. Hopefully, we shall get there with all the little helps that we do have and the knowledge that we do acquire. We'll be able to help all the children on the spectrum. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye bye.